And joining us to discuss the Israel-Hamas ceasefire, we are joined by quite an eminent panel. We have joined by Dr. Sreeram Chaulia, who's Professor and Dean from the Jindal School of International Affairs. Dr. Chaulia, the ceasefire is negotiated and brokered by the US as well as Egypt. Now, they can be looked at as proxies for this entire deal. In this case, then, how is it that what sort of a role is there really, the responsibilities on the proxies to keep the ceasefire going?
No, absolutely. I think Egypt played a pivotal role in convincing Hamas, and it also appears that the Egyptian military and intelligence also had a channel open with Israel. So Egypt was in many ways talking to both sides, backed by the Americans on the Israeli side. So it was a tandem, definitely a duo that was in operation, and perhaps Turkey and Qatar also weighed in because now they seem to have influence on Hamas. So it looks like it was a collective effort, and at least in getting this what looks like a temporary ceasefire in the long run, viewed from the in the long run of this conflict, I think it's a positive move, and I think the principals have played a responsible role. Although I would say that the Americans should have come rather late to the party. They should have been, at it personally, I think, right from day one. But they were distracted with this pivot to East Asia, and they took a lot of time to return. And I think it cost a lot of unfortunate lives in the process.
Dr. Chaulia, we heard a little earlier, the reaction from Hamas, they're claiming victory. But let's look at what Netanyahu says, that he's giving the ceasefire a chance because he believes that that's what he had a conversation with President Obama, and who asked him to give the ceasefire a chance. And basically, he's giving the ceasefire a chance because of that. And he also says that he believes that the US is going to help them to see that when the border opens up, that no trade of arms takes place over there. So that's the position that Israel takes. But if you look at, that he is also going to face an election in January, and the reactions from the street in Israel doesn't seem to be so good. They say you're making an agreement with terrorists. So how do you view all this?
It was a political gamble for Netanyahu, for sure. In fact, if you look at the previous two major conflicts, the one between Israel and Hezbollah, and in 2006, and the 22-day war in Gaza in 2008, all of them were timed with Israeli elections in mind. And I think it was like a rally behind the flag effect that Netanyahu was looking for. And to some extent, the Israeli public was incensed with these rocket attacks. If you look at, they say that 230 rocket attacks in 2010, but after the Arab Spring emerged, it became 630 rocket attacks. So clearly, they seem to, he tried to tap into this frustration of the Israeli public. Sure. But now, in hindsight, now that it has not achieved the goals of completely annihilating the rocket launching capacity of Hamas, and people sometimes give the metaphor of cutting of grass in Israel, where they say, we have to keep doing this every few years, but then the grass grows back. So the blockade and the more fundamental problems, which are the root cause of this whole, conflagration, have not been addressed. And I think the Israelis also realize there's a lot of vulnerability. These Fajr rockets, which are supplied by Iran, have hit Tel Aviv, they've hit Jerusalem, they've come much deeper into Israel than ever before. So sense of vulnerability has increased. So I think for Netanyahu, it's a dicey thing where how the public is going to reward or punish him in the elections. But according to opinion polls, he's still a front runner to form a government and get re-elected. So we'll have to see whether this gamble paid off.
Dr. Chaulia, what happens then if the ceasefire doesn't hold?
Well, I think it will hold for some time now, because the Israelis use the term deterrence, and that they wanted to establish deterrence. Actually, what Hamas has shown is that it has established deterrence now, with Iranian help, and also with help from some of the Arab countries. So it looks like now, politically and militarily, Hamas is definitely has the moral high ground. And on top of it, it's now showing that it is the resistance, as it likes to call itself. So I think the ceasefire, should be converted. But for that to happen, really America has to come down like a ton of bricks on Israel. That is the crux of the matter. And I would hope that Obama would be relatively freer from fears of the so-called Jewish lobby and all these vested interest groups in his second term, and would take a more, equidistant and a more fairer position on this. He has, as you know, had a lot of tension with Israel in the past, but yet the establishment, the American establishment, is still very much pro-Israeli, and I think until that changes, because if Egypt can play it both ways, America should also be able to play it both ways.
Okay,
and that is really the lesson.
Finally, Dr. Chaulia, what do you think? I mean, this build-up of arms on both sides, is it going to be a peace? Would it lead to peace? Because we're looking at lasting peace in this area, or is it really likely to be to lead to a future war that could be, destructive, would lead to a, sort of a world war kind of situation?
Well, I hope not. Definitely, there's been a build-up. In fact, the Americans are now supposed to be helping the Israelis more with missile defense, which is a way to actually reduce this vulnerability that Israel has suddenly found itself in, and which is also a cover behind which you could continue to shoot limitlessly. So I think the deterrence factor is there. Right. Iran will continue to supply Hamas and strengthen it.
Okay.
So we are going to see, I hope it's going to be a balance of power that will prevent more war, but I'm afraid, as is often the case, arms races lead to more war.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. Then, well, we leave it there. Thanks very much for watching. Namaskar.